Hello and welcome back to Math with Mrs. Becker. This is College Algebra, section 1.3. Today we are specifically looking at the graphs of functions. We will start off by just making sure that you remember what we mean when we're talking about the domain and the range. The domain consists of our x values. And remember, our x values on the coordinate plane, they run along the x-axis, which goes side to side. So when you're looking at the graph of a function, if you want to know the domain, you are looking side to side. What x values are being included? Our range are the y values. And the y values, again, picture that coordinate plane. The y-axis runs up and down. So our range, we are specifically looking at the y values. What is the lowest y value that is included in the graph? Up to what is the highest value. So domain, x values, horizontal, side to side. Range, y values, vertical, up and down. So here are some examples. It says, find the domain and range of a function from the graph. So if I am looking for the domain, remember domain are the x values. So I have this little image here for you. The domain, you're going left to right, okay? So the furthest value that I have going to the left, the smallest, is -1. Now the -1, notice this is a filled in circle, so it's included. X is what the domain is, it's the x values, and it goes all the way up to 4, but notice this is an open circle. So that means that it does not include the 4. So your domain, your x values are anything greater than or equal to -1, but less than 4. So you could write it as an inequality, or remember that interval notation. If you have a squared bracket, it means that it's included. If you have a rounded bracket, it means that it is not included. These two things mean the same thing. It tells you that your domain, the smallest value is -1, and all the x values run up to but not including 4. Now B is the range, so we're looking at y values. The lowest value on the y-axis is a -5. It is a filled in circle, so it's included. The highest value is a 4, and again, it's included on the graph. So your y's run from -5 up to +4. If you were doing interval notation, both ends would be squared off brackets. Now here's a fun thing you can do with graphs as well. Remember the notation f of x. If I have f of x, what they're actually telling you after that is the y value. Okay, so if I have f of 1, what they're telling us is that the x value is a -1. So if I go to the left 1, what they want to know is what is the y value. If I go to the left 1, my y value is -5. F of 0, if my x value is a 0, if I do not go left or right, your y value is also a 0. F of 1, if I have 1 as the x location, so if I go to the right 1, what is my y value? It is 3. So being able to look at a graph, identify the domain, which x values are covered, the range, which y values are covered, and then be able to evaluate if you are given the x, that is a huge thing that we will look at in 1.3. Okay, so there was just one basic example. We're going to do 2 more, okay? If I look at A is the domain are x values. The smallest x value, notice it's an open circle. Open circle means it's not included. So -3 is less than x. The furthest that my graph goes is 1, and it's a filled in circle. So -3 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 1. Or you could go -3 rounded because it's not included to 1 squared bracket because it's included. Now if I'm looking at the range, the lowest value, and I do see that there's 2 locations, and it does include it because it's not open circles in either of these spots. So the lowest value for y is a -4. The highest value is 0. Notice this is an open circle, but it's still going to be included because this portion of the graph does touch 0. So there is a portion of the graph that does include 0. So your y's range from -4 to 0. They are both included. So if you were doing interval notation, it would be -4, 0, and they're both squared brackets. Now for C, f of -1. If I go to the left one, because that's the x value, what is my y value? -2. If I have f of 0, if I stay at 0, do not go left or right, my y value is 0. If I have f of 1, if I go to the right one, my y value is at -4. Okay, so again, domain, range, being able to evaluate if you're given your x value in that function notation. Last one like this. For this function, okay, so again, sorry, I jumped ahead. We're going to do domain, range, and then this time they're just giving us different values when we evaluate. Domain, the smallest value side to side is -5. It is not included. It is an open circle. Domain is x. It goes up to and including 4. So as interval notation, and again, I'm showing you both notations, you only need to do one. So if you like inequalities, awesome. If you prefer interval notation, great. I am just showing you both because you do have options, whichever one you're most comfortable with. Okay, keep going. B is the range. The lowest value on this line is -2, but it's not included. Range is y. The highest value on the y-axis is a 3, and it is included. So again, if you're somebody doing interval notation, you would have a rounded edge with -2 and a squared edge at 3. Now for part C, this time they gave us some different values. F of -4. So if I go to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, my value is in between -1 and -2, so it's approximately a -1.5. If I have -1.5, if I go to the left 1.5 a unit, my y value is at a 0. If I have f of 4, if I go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, I go up 1, 2, 3. So f of 4 is equal to 3. So that is the first big picture from the day. Can you take a graph of a function, identify the domain, range, and then also do some evaluations in function notation? Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and look at Desmos.com.